The journey begins, searching for faith. When the soul feels lost but still yearns for light. This first part marks the beginning of a soul's pilgrimage, from confusion to clarity, from wandering to belonging. It captures the quiet ache of every heart that has ever whispered, "Lord, where are you?" It is a story of rediscovery, of grace that arrives when least expected, of questions that lead not to despair, but to deeper faith. 1. Finding your way home. There are moments in life when we stop and ask, where am I really going? We wake up, go to work, scroll through our phones, meet people, and laugh. But deep inside, something feels missing. We can't explain it, but there's an emptiness that no success, no money, and no relationship seems to fill. Many people live this way without even noticing. They are busy, yes, but not truly alive. They run every day, yet they don't know what they're running after. That is what it means to be lost. Not that we don't know our address, but that we don't know our direction. I've seen it in many faces. People smiling outside, but tired inside. People who have everything the world says is important. Yet at night, when everything is quiet, they feel alone. They ask themselves, is this really the life I worked so hard for? But being lost is not always a curse. Sometimes it is God's gentle way of helping us wake up. He allows us to lose our way so that we can start searching for what truly matters. He lets us reach the end of our own strength so that we can finally lean on His. When we start searching, something beautiful begins. We begin to notice small things, the smile of a child, the calm of a sunrise, the warmth of a prayer. We start to realize that happiness does not come from what we own, but from whom we belong to. And slowly, step by step, we begin to find our way home. I remember a time in my life when I thought I had everything figured out. I had work, plans, and goals. I believed that if I worked hard enough, life would reward me. But there came a day when all that didn't feel enough. I felt tired, not just in body, but in soul. That's when I heard a small voice inside me say, "Come home." It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was a whisper, the kind that touches your heart and makes you stop what you're doing. Coming home to God does not always mean going to church more or praying longer. It begins when we start being honest with ourselves. It starts when we admit that we are not in control, that we need help, and that our hearts are tired of pretending. Home is where we no longer have to prove anything. It is where we are loved not because of what we've done, but simply because we belong to Him. Sometimes we get lost because of pride, sometimes because of pain, sometimes because of fear. But whatever the reason, God never gives up on us. He keeps sending small signs, a friend who listens, a Bible verse that hits home, a story that moves us to tears. Those are His ways of guiding us back. And when you finally decide to go home, truly home, you will realize something amazing. You were never alone. Every road, every wrong turn, every moment of weakness was part of His plan to bring you back. Because home is not just a house. Home is a person. Home is God. And He has been waiting for you patiently, lovingly, all this time. Reflection prompt. Think about your own journey. When was the last time you felt lost? What made you start searching again? And if God were speaking to you now, what do you think He would say to help you find your way home? 2. When grace finally came, a baby, a cross, and a new beginning. Grace does not always come the way we expect. It does not arrive wrapped in light or music. Sometimes grace comes quietly, like a small cry in the night, a tear that finally falls, or a moment when everything we once held dear starts to crumble. Many of us think that God shows His love only through blessings, through answered prayers, success, and peace. But in truth, His deepest love often hides inside pain, waiting for us to notice it. Grace is not something we earn. It is something we meet, often when we have nothing left to give. Think about the story of Christmas. When God decided to save the world, he did not come in power or glory. He came as a baby, small, helpless, wrapped in cloth, lying in a manger. It was not the scene anyone expected. Yet that tiny child carried all the hope of heaven. That was grace, quiet, hidden, and yet strong enough to change the world. Then years later, that same grace appeared again, not in a cradle this time, but on a cross. There the world saw defeat, but heaven saw victory. In the blood and tears of Jesus, grace was poured out again, freely, painfully, lovingly. The baby in the manger and the man on the cross are the same proof. God's love does not avoid suffering, it redeems it. We all carry our own crosses. They come in many forms: a broken dream, a sickness, a strained family, a mistake that haunts us. At first, these crosses feel like punishment. We ask, "Why me, Lord?" But as time passes, we start to see our pain becomes the very place where God's love finds us. It softens our hearts. It teaches us to understand others. It leads us to kneel again, to pray again, to believe again. And in that moment of surrender, grace enters, not with noise, but with peace. When grace finally came into my own life, it did not fix everything overnight. It came slowly, through moments of quiet surrender, when I stopped trying to control everything and simply whispered, "Lord, I trust you." That's when things began to change, not always around me, but inside me. Grace does not fade, it deepens, teaching us endurance where emotion once carried us. Every ending hides a secret door, a door that opens to grace. The loss you cry about today might be the soil where tomorrow's peace will grow. The heartbreak that broke you might become the light that helps someone else find their way. Because when grace comes, it does not erase the pain, it transforms it. A baby was born, a cross was lifted, and a new beginning started for the world and for you too. You may not see it yet, but grace is already on its way. It comes in its own time, in its own form, sometimes small, quiet, or ordinary. But when it comes, you will know. You were never forgotten. You were being prepared. Whisper moment. Every search begins with silence. Every silence hides a call. And every call, if answered, leads you home. 3. Life after grace. Not perfect, but changed. After grace comes, life doesn't suddenly turn perfect. The problems don't disappear. The old habits don't vanish overnight. What changes first is not the world around us, but the world inside us. When we first experience God's love, maybe through a powerful prayer, a retreat, or a quiet moment of surrender, there is often a fire that burns bright. We feel strong. We want to change everything. We promise to be better, to do more, to never fall again. But after some time, that fire starts to fade. Real life returns. The same work, the same struggles, the same temptations. And then we ask, what happened? Did I lose my grace? The truth is, no. Grace is still there. It just starts to work in a different way. At first, grace lifts you up. Later, it teaches you how to stand. It moves from excitement to endurance, from feelings to faith, from fire to steady light. Many people think that being close to God means never falling again. But God never asked for perfection. He asked for perseverance. He knows that we will stumble. He knows that we will get tired. But He also knows that every time we rise again, every time we choose to love instead of quit, we become more like Him. Holiness doesn't grow in perfect soil. It grows in our weakness, in our daily battles, in our small acts of trying again. When you fall but keep returning to prayer, that's grace. When you are tired but choose to forgive, that's grace. When you feel empty but still say, Lord, I trust you, that's grace. Grace is not a one-time miracle. It is a daily breath. There was a time in my life when I thought that to be holy meant to never make mistakes. But life after grace taught me that holiness is not about being spotless. It's about being humble. It's about knowing that without God we are nothing. But with Him, even our brokenness can shine. Sometimes we meet people who are quiet, gentle, and full of peace. They don't talk much about faith, but when you are with them, you feel loved. They are not perfect. They just carry grace well. They have learned to walk with their wounds, to love even when they are not understood, and to believe even when prayers seem unanswered. That is what life after grace looks like. If you have felt the fire of God once and now it feels dim, don't be discouraged. The fire hasn't gone out. It's only settling deeper, becoming steady like a lamp that never dies. Grace is not a feeling, it's a relationship. And relationships grow not in loud moments, but in quiet faithfulness. So don't aim to be perfect. Aim to be faithful. Don't aim to impress. Aim to stay close. Because life after grace is not about being sinless. It's about being sincere. It's about walking every day, even when it's hard, knowing that the same God who began the journey is walking beside you still. Reflection prompt. Think about how your faith has changed since you first experienced grace. Are you harder on yourself when you fall, or gentler because you now understand mercy? What small act of faithfulness can you do today, not to prove yourself, but to stay close to God?